but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hello and welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave.
There he is, and Mecky, that's me. Live from the Sydney studios in Australia. That's right, down under. If you didn't know it, Revolution Radio has a chat room, and we're in there right now, and you can be too. Well, I'm not in there yet. I'm still trying to get in there. My machine is slow. I do apologize. You simply go to freedomslips.com, and you can chat and listen from there. There's an audio button, Studio A, Studio B in the left-hand corner on the top. Just click that, and you can, in fact, we're in Studio A if you want to listen to us. Now, you can check out our website, shinysideout.net. Dave did some great updates, and as soon as I get a spare second, I will do so as well. And we've got all the info of all our shows on that website. And you can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. That's right. In fact, there are 2 pages dedicated to Shiny Side Out on Facebook. There are heaps of ways to listen to this station, guys. This is the 21st century. If you live in Kentucky, you can tune into WZZR 101.3 FM. Once again, 101.3 FM. That's old style. And if you're anywhere else in the world, in the entire world, you can maybe even further see how far the signal carries. You can listen via one of these apps. Revolution Radio, of course, TalkStream Live, and Shiny Side Out. Our very own app. There's also Radio Tuner, tunein.com. But Shiny Side Out, that's the app that Dave made. That's the one you want to use. That's the one we'd like you to use if you can. That'd be awesome. At home, if you might have a Grace Tabletop digital radio, or you could be driving around in a GM motor vehicle, General Motors motor vehicle, with the receiver-enabled radio. And I'm sure there are going to be more digital radios picking up our signal very soon. These are all revolutions in radio. It enables us to come to you via the interweb. We are on the line for your pleasure. If you want a CD of our last year's show, or last year's in fact, we are approaching year number 5 on the air. There's only a few more shows before we conclude number 4, year number 4 I should say. Mm-hmm. You simply check the station's website for details of the CDs if you want. Now, if you want to call in, and you're in the United States of America, the number is 347-688-2902. The number again is 347-688-2902. Now, we're not sure if we're going to have time for calling today. We've got an awesome lineup for you guys. Or, if you're on Skype, Dave and I are, you can simply add Freedom Screen, right? Solaris, yet again, had an awesome guest, awesome show. And only caught the tail end of it, but I'm sure Dave caught probably more of it. Like I said, 2 little girls, they don't let you do too many things. Having said all of that, Dave, how has your week been?
The week has been in recovery mode. Oh my goodness, I was so ill. I have friends on Skype concerned, Mecky, and
yes.
My voice has only just returned. I was without voice for most of the week. All I want to do is sleep and get over it. I've been on antibiotics, although I'm not the big fan of them, but when you need to take them, honestly, they can save your life, and I think this is one of those times. Outside of that, I'm just so lucky, Mecky, that Zika virus, which is the big talk everywhere right now, is not where I am.
No, that's fortunate. Yeah. Look, the Zika virus is actually. We just wanted to very quickly say a few things about the Zika virus. We do have an awesome guest lineup today, so I don't want to take too much time of it. But let's just say that the Zika virus has been around for a while. It was first identified in 1947 in Uganda, but as of late, it seems to have exploded. Right? It seems to have really come over. In a bad way, and sorry, is my sound not coming through?
No, your
okay,
sound is coming through fine,
Mickey.
Oh,
okay, gotcha. So essentially, the Zika virus doesn't kill you, okay, or at least not yet. We haven't seen anything like that. What it does, though, it causes microencephalitis, which is an abnormally small skull in an unborn child. So if you're pregnant, and I'm not sure what stage which stage you would be safe. I guess if you're in the last trimester, with most of the skull having been developed, I think you may be okay. I don't know. But certainly the first and second trimester, you're at risk of your child developing this ailment. So it is important that you stay out of areas, I guess, that have this virus. It is only transmitted via insect bite, as far as we know. Right, human to human transmission. I do not know about.
No, it's now been reported, Meki, that
it has.
Yes, completely. That it's able to be transmitted sexually after you've.
Oh, really?
If you have contact with an infected person, also through saliva. Meki.
Really?
Does this not sound like AIDS again?
Well, yes, except this is a bit more insidious. Well, AIDS, would kill you eventually, I guess, after prolonged illnesses. This is much more effective, Dave.
This stops the replication of people, of humans.
Exactly. Now, yeah, exactly. So we've talked about, there's an agenda that wants to bring about the reduction of our numbers.
Agenda 21.
As we're heading toward a critical number, at least so Dave and I believe. The awareness cascade. You go to show number 100, number 200, to look at the detail of that. But now this is actually really ingenious. If it were, I'm not saying it is, but if it were planned, and then there's some indicators that it might be, it's ingenious because one, you are in fact causing a lot of failed births, stillbirths and defects, so the child can't survive. A lot of people would probably opt for abortion if the child is severely disabled. And the ones that are born, they are then severely disabled, right? So certainly they can't reproduce, or not very likely they would. Not only that, though, so they're the people that are infected and that have the miscarriages and whatnot. And I think the World Health Organization predicts some 4 million people will get infected before this thing runs its course. Probably more, I don't know. But what is even more important is the psychological factor, because if you know that this virus is out there, would you not take precautions not to get pregnant? Would it not put you off to if you were in a risk area? So I think the birth reduction that we will see will not just become from the infected people. It will come from the people that choose not to become pregnant because this virus is out there. And at this point, I don't know how much it's going to spread, how far, how long. I mean, if human to human transmission is now a reality, then this pretty much puts it out globally, because it's mosquito borne, and as you move to the colder latitudes, then the disease is less likely to affect you. It would be very prevalent around the equator. They mentioned Singapore specifically. There's Brazil, of course, a massive outbreak. But if climate and mosquitoes are no longer the determining factor, if now human to human transmission is possible, then of course that is completely relevant. You can fly to the North Pole and infect someone with your spit, right? If that's true. So this may have and this is really interesting psychology behind this, Dave. If it is planned, I'm not saying it is, but if it were planned, it's a very interesting psychological play on people's fear. The one thing that the people are looking forward to the most, I guess, in their lives is to raise a family, have kids and whatnot. So it's really important to get this Zika virus under control, and it's even more interesting that it's happening at the time of the Olympics.
And when the Olympics, that's when the greatest influx to the country is occurring.
Correct.
And
globally,
then where do those people go after the Olympics? And let me think about this for a second. Oh yeah, they go home again to their countries. This is I'm going to say straight from the outset, because there is a lot of talk about it, and I don't have an official position on it yet. I'm still sifting through all the information. But let me just put this out there for a minute. I was watching a video. Alex Jones had a guest on, professor of. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. It was telling, very telling, Meki. And he said the Gates Foundation has funding. Now I've just done some research and I found that the Mosquito Test Project received a $100,000 Gates Foundation grant to begin its work, and then a further $55 million to accelerate the program. This is the putting a antibiotic in a mosquito and breeding them 1 million per month in the region in Brazil started last year, And the program is to with the intent of wiping out dengue fever. Now, dengue and Zika are very similar, apparently, according to the research I've done today. And I will tell you that the female is not meant to. It's meant to have this antibody, and if it comes in contact with dengue, it's supposed to reduce its lifespan so that it can't replicate and populate. And it's between 75 to 90% reduces the population of mosquitoes, which is good. That's a good thing. Yeah, sad for the mosquitoes, good for us, and good for the spread of dengue. However, this dengue-like thing it looks like it's come out as a result of all of this. With only 10% of the population of mosquitoes left, what are they transmitting now? Because you know how, bacteria and viruses replicate and are able to adapt to antibiotics. Well, it seems like this tetraglycine, or whatever it's called, has, or may inadvertently, I'm going to put that out there, because I don't know if there's a bad, intention behind this. But thinking about this, Mickey, who was one of those depopulation agenda advocates? Bill Gates is the answer. Well, his foundation paid for this project.
Yeah.
Entirely. Not just from the grant application, through the grant funding, through to the acceleration of the project in the Gates Foundation's own webpage. Yeah? Yep. Oh, yeah, it starts to reek a little. That's all I can say. Join the dots. We're going to get Professor on in the show in the coming weeks and see what he can add to this. Because you know what? I think personally that this is one of those things, Meki. In China, I was brought to my attention today. A good friend of mine said, in China they asked everybody, "Can you only have one child, please?" And there's ramifications if you were not to have any greater number. That's depopulation, right? Well, this one puts it in your own hands. Do you want to have a baby that dies? If you do, well, go ahead, knock yourself out. If you're infected by Zika, their brain, it's like pinhead, and it squashes the brain, yeah? Dengue does a very similar thing where your head's the right size, but your brain swells and you've got to drill to release the pressure. So Zika makes a tiny cranium impossible for a human to live through. So how can a virus, Meki, this is my question, change your DNA? Because your DNA is what tells your body to do, what to do, how to grow.
But that's what it does. See, the way a virus works, it actually attacks your cells and uses your cells to replicate itself, right? So it uses it's like the whole cell, and uses the cell to virtually create clones of itself. So it turns your cells into a virus factory, right? That's what happens, and usually your immune system stops it. But that's what a virus does. That's why retroviruses work. That's why retroviruses are used in DNA therapy, like when you have gene therapy. So you use the retrovirus to actually affect that. But this is a scary thing, my friend, because the thing is this. Now it will be 12 years, and this is according to the Center of Biodefense and Emerging Infectious Diseases. It'll be 12 years before there's a vaccine for public use.
So they're asking the population not to populate?
Well, maybe, but the thing is this: the virus is not going to kill you. So as a guy, or even if you're a girl, or it doesn't really matter, male, female, you get it. What happens? You get fever, you get a rush, a bit of a headache. That's it. That's it, right? Because it's a virus. It's a normal viral development. The kicker is, of course, the birth effects. That's really what the problem here is, right? And this is why it's so insidious. It is a fantastic disease for its purpose. If, again, I'm not saying it is, but if it were plants, and I'm going to do a lot more research into this, and because it's been around since 1947, right? If it was an issue, right? If the Zika was an issue, by the way, it's named after the Zika forest in Uganda. Anyway, it's really I don't know. I don't understand why we don't have a vaccine, right? If it's so dangerous to fetuses and such, right? 60 years. It's not enough. to develop a vaccine, really.
Well,
Anyway.
Mickey, if it's AIDS-like, right? So, in that it's now able to replicate through human, what's the word I'm looking for? Through the liquids inside a human.
Yeah.
And sexually too. That's crazy. So, Mickey, do we have a vaccine for AIDS?
No, but we have treatment protocols.
Treatment.
So
you can get treated. Yeah.
But you can. Well, there is a vaccine for AIDS now, right? So this is like if you I don't know, if your partner had AIDS, for example, right? There's actually medications and protocols you can take that will not let you take the AIDS virus, that will not get you infected, right? So that exists today, right? I don't know how successful or how perfect they are, or how if you want to risk it, but these protocols exist.
But my point is on this, is that, well, when AIDS started, if the government at the time had said, look, don't have sex with anything, we don't want anyone to replicate, there's a whole generation or 2 generations down the toilet. Think about what's going to happen in Brazil, where they've already said to their people, hold off, having relations, because the outcome could be terrible. Okay, they've put it on the people, Meki.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to bring out on this conversation. Look, we have
look, you're right. And you're saying we've seen this before. You don't tell people what to do. You don't force people what to do. That never works, right? It doesn't. So what you do is you create a problem, and people will respond to the problem, or they will ask you to fix it for them, or whatever the case may be. I don't really care, right? And all of a sudden, and here you're right. You're 100% correct. It's put to the people. There's the Zika virus. Do you really want to have kids? You think now is a good time to start that family, especially if you're living in the subtropical areas? I don't think that's a good idea, but it's up to you, really. Chances are the child will die during the pregnancy. Chances are, or it will be born with severe disabilities. So
it can't live. The problem is it can't live when it's born.
Yeah.
So look, we've got a caller. Welcome to Shiny Side Out, area code 602.
Hello, guys. It's Warren in Phoenix, Arizona. How's life down under? My sister's Australian.
Oh,
it's all good.
We're glad to hear that. All right, so
what
Warren,
time is it down there? It's like 12:20 up
6
here.
p.m. 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Oh,
on
wow.
Sunday. So Warren,
Wow,
what
okay.
do you have a comment regarding Zika?
Yes. I was just looking at an article about that. It turns out, viruses are part of our genome to begin with. We have them to thank for our evolution, in fact. But, they're also our adversary, of course. And there is, that thought that if you want to control the world population, you might, want to afflict them with a malady that would prevent them from propagating to a large degree. However, my concern is there's a new technology called CRISPR. I don't know if you guys heard of that, but what the virus does is it goes into the double helix, snips out a little segment and puts its own in there.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that. Yes.
Yeah. They're using this to develop cures for, bad little strains of DNA that need replacement. But the problem is this is going to be, an everyday technology. People are going to have the ability to do this in their garage. So what if they start, tinkering around with stuff and then things get let out and it starts spreading? It's highly concerning.
Oh, look, we share your concerns, and our concerns go deeper than that. That this would be, in fact, an engineered virus is our concern, not that we're saying it is, and that this is just falling in line with the Agenda 21 of depopulation, because the Bill Gates or the Gates Foundation has paid for it all.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'll let you know again, and listeners will hear this factually stated, that the uq.edu.au states mosquito test project wins $100,000 Gates Foundation grant, and this is a portable test to detect mosquitoes carrying dengue fever. Okay, and then the Gates Foundation on their own website commits $55 million to accelerate the grant through the dengue vaccine research sites in Asia and South South America. Dengue is caused by a group of 4 mosquito-transmitted viruses. Now, what that led to is this: the Eliminate the Dengue Fever project, which was to replicate the tetracycline antibiotic inside the mosquito, which when let go into the environment kills off 75 to 90% of them before they're able to replicate the virus into humans. And that's the problem, that it's exactly the same location that the virus Zika has now emerged, and in the same time frame.
I see. Wow. So it's almost like a genocide for the insect world, which could, evolve into a genocide for us.
It's looking that way at the moment. And look, and we're going to interview someone who is a greater authority than we are, but this is just our research that's led us into this. And this is, we've got another caller. Mackie, this is going crazy.
Okay.
It's a very popular topic because it affects us all as human beings and as brothers and sisters. I'm going to let you go and listen to you guys. But I just want to say that you are doing a great job, all of you, on the radio, and it matters. So keep up the good fight. And I'm a rational person, I never really believed in conspiracy theories, but the way the world is going, it gives you second, third, and fourth thoughts about matters. And you can't live in fear. You got to keep living your life. But if things get to a point where, you're just so scared and handcuffed and paralyzed that you can't really do anything, I don't know what the next step is, honestly. But I love you guys, and I'll keep listening. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Warren.
Sir. Thank you very much.
Take care. All right, we do have another caller, and it's Aussie Paul. Paul's always got something good to say. Paul, go ahead.
Well, obviously, we're talking about mozzies. This is our favourite show.
It's true.
Ross River virus is one of the worst ones, but the worst one comes to mind. I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
There was four
malaria.
mosquito malaria. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. One of my friends had malaria a few times because he went over to Indonesia and this and that, and he didn't have malaria pills or whatnot. And my golly gosh, 6 months to try and get over it, and it reoccurs.
Mm-hmm.
My golly gosh. One of the worst things that a mossy could do.
Outside of killing you.
Well, exactly. No, it didn't. But yeah, he wished he could have. But yeah, if you understand, there's so much pain, agony, the swelling, the all the contortions, and yeah. Oh my golly gosh, malaria is one of the worst. I actually had hypothermia, which was bad enough. Now, that's easy enough to get over. But malaria, my golly gosh.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Do you know what?
You're correct. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what, Mickey? This is the crazy planet, right? It's a crazy planet. Imagine if we didn't have major industries and governments, being fed money by them so they can achieve their ultimate goals. It was just to earn more and more money. Imagine if it was just, a lovely place, and I live in a dream world where everyone was honest and there was no need for police. There was only a need for hospitals if you were to accidentally hurt yourself. There shouldn't be any new diseases. I can't imagine how we could come across more and more all the time. Just imagine it for a minute. But then you add, there's a segue coming, then you add, well, our sudden reawakening again for everything paranormal and everything that's outside of our day-to-day. Mickey, the X-Files has come back again.
I was going to mention that, but go ahead. Yes.
The UFOs, MUFON, and another organization, which is the I've written it down, AUFON. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we've seen this huge uptick, Mickey, in the awakening of people shaking off that government control, the looking to the skies, keeping your eyes peeled, the resurgence once again in ufology. Mekki, people are seeing stuff everywhere.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, though, and I would love to, bring our guest in just a second, but it's a double-edged sword because I'm always worried when there's disclosure, when there's a seeming upspike in interest, because especially disclosure, and especially from government officials and whatnot, adds credibility to the claims. So in my mind, it's number one, it's good. That's clearly, but number two, it also worries me because are we now at a point where it really doesn't matter anymore? We've spoken about this before. So they can now tell us because who cares, right? We have reached the agenda points that we wanted to reach. We've almost fulfilled our plan, so we can tell you whatever we like. It doesn't matter anymore, right? I'm hoping that's not the case.
You mean the James Bond villain who turns around in the chair, stroking the cat, and says, "It's over, Bond. Now you can see me fulfill my fantasy of world domination. All I have to do now is push this single button," and he confesses the entire thing.
Yes, like that.
Yeah, it's all done. He's ready. You're all ready to go. Push the button. That's it. His plans are done. But for some reason, Bond, is able to wiggle out of the shark tank and defeat him.
I do believe, though, we're dealing with egomaniacal, what can I say best, psychopaths. Okay, so I think these elite, male or female or human or non-human, doesn't really matter at this point, are massive egomaniacs. They need acknowledgement, and I think some of them want to be known for what they've done. I mean, it's like if you're a serial killer, and you really have no regrets, and you're not one of those guys that wants to be caught, but you do want people to know what you've done. I've killed 60,000 people. Look at me, right? This is, I think, maybe some of what we're dealing with here. But we have an awesome guest, guys, and Dave will do a much better introduction than I in a second. So stay glued to your radio receptacles or whatever you use to listen to us, and welcome to the show, Mr.
Barry Taylor. And I say that with an Australian accent because Barry's an Australian. He's a UFO researcher for a long, or not that long. He's only maybe a little bit older than I am, Mekki, or we are. I remember being... I want Barry to talk. Barry, welcome to Shiny Side Out. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great. Can you hear me, Lord?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. We wish the audio was a little bit better, but...
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've been having trouble with internet all again, so I'm glad you're able to make a connection. Yeah, how are you?
We're doing really well. Look, if you like, I'm happy to dial up your mobile and we'll do a test to see whether the audio is a bit better that way, if you like.
Yeah, I've got the mobile in my hand, so you can give it a go if you like.
Righto.
I think that'd be better, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'll hang you up from the call and I'll call you back in a sec. Hang on one sec.
Beautiful. While Dave is calling Barry, and we're glad to have him, we're lucky to get him, in fact. Think about the X-Files as well. So the X-Files is now starting again with the season 10, episode 1 and 2, I think have already been aired. But the point is there's no longer any clandestine denial of any any aliens or UFOs. The very first episode, which I actually watched, it goes right into it. The aliens crash landed. That's what happened, and here we are retro engineering this spacecraft, and there's no question about it at all. In fact, everybody knows about it, and just come along for the ride. So it doesn't even try to obfuscate any of the information. That's how it starts out. The premise is now no longer are there aliens? Is the truth out there? No, the truth is out there, and there are aliens out there. That's the premise for the show now. Some 10 years later or 15 years almost, I think. Hello, Barry.
Barry, we're back with you.
Excellent.
That's much better, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Not a problem. Happy to be able to help. Do you know, Mekki was just talking about the X-Files just coming straight out and saying there's no question anymore that there are aliens out there. It's just that they've already existed and, oh, look, we'll just come clean. Now, we saw recently that the UFO Disclosure Conference was trying to put forward enough evidence for Congress to start asking more questions in the US. What are you? Firstly, I'll get you to introduce yourself and the length of time you've been in the industry and what were you doing beforehand before you got into it?
Well, I had my first encounter with the UFO in Sydney in 1970. I've had an interest in it ever since then. I did in New South Wales in the town of Brockton. This videoed for the whole decade of the 90s pretty well. The UFO activity, like the dish, of what I would put alien craft, going over town and not every.
Oh, hang on, Barry. That audio, I don't think it's any better.
Isn't it?
No. It's gonna kill me.
Yeah, it's not awesome. So I switched my video off. Maybe it's eating bandwidth. So let me try that. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Yep. Is that
How's
better?
that? Is that better?
All right. So
I can hear you. Okay.
yeah. All right. Let's try that. Okay. So you said you got into ufology after you had your first encounter. What were you doing before then? Before you had your first encounter, you didn't believe in UFOs or anything like that. Nothing. So what were you doing then?
Well, I actually saw my first UFOs 10-year-old. It was only a group of several satellite objects moving at high altitude at extremely high speed, and that's when I very first saw my first UFO. So I've seen them pretty well on and off all my life.
Wow, at 10. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's about when I saw my first one. And yeah, I'm going to find by the end of this, our chat today, I'm going to find out. We're going to find out more and more. One of the things that did you have a period where you started researching straight away when you did that?
In 1970s, I did a UFO group in Sydney. I went to a couple of guys there and started to hear stories of other people's experiences. And it was a time when
Oh,
Hello?
I'm going to go back to Skype, I think, Barry. Bear with me. We'll pull you back in on Skype.
But so it can't be his Skype connection. It has to be our link, our end, I think.
Yeah, I think it might be, but it's not very good for me either. So
Yeah.
just wait a sec,
So
Barry.
sorry. While Dave is trying to get Barry back in, and we apologize for the quality of the audio, but that's live radio for you. Okay, so we do what we can to fix it up. So look. The X-Files, like I said, a very popular show in the 90s. I watched every single episode. I was hooked. And clearly I was identifying with Fox Mulder more than with Dana's Scully's character. But it is certainly true to say that the tone of the show now, I've only watched one episode, is very different. But it comes among a plethora of shows that are dealing with alien themes, in the future or now or just in the near future, right? So things like, we've been invaded by aliens. This new show, Colony, right? We've been invaded by aliens and they've locked us up, like similar to the Israelis built the wall around Israel there, and other shows as well. The Walking Dead, not alien necessarily, but certainly end of the world type scenarios. Other alien shows are coming thick and fast. Alien movies. There's a whole bunch of disclosure movies. If you actually watch them and you do some research, you understand that these are true stories that are being told, right? In some instances, so the media is gearing up massively to prepare us for something. Like they say that back in the 40s, when arguably the UFO phenomenon started in the modern era, even though it's been going for tens of thousands of years. In fact, we know it's tens of thousands of years because we've got the cave paintings, guys, right? In France or everywhere in Australia, there are all these and they're the same cave paintings. They're the same cave paintings.
They're the same. That's right. They don't change from continent to continent. They're just the same. Yeah.
The same, right? And amazingly, the same. Anyway, we'll do a show on that very soon. But so you have this phenomenon. But let's say 1947 is when it started again. Kenneth Arnold, Roswell crash, and the other crashes around the Kecksburg UFO incident in the 50s. In Russia, there were a couple of incidences, and so on and so forth. So let's say, for the last 60 years, and let's say the governments were arguing back then that the people aren't ready, and there's a point to that as well. there's a point to that as well. Maybe it would have destroyed our civilization just knowing about it. Maybe not, though, right? Maybe not, but they probably didn't want to take a risk. Plus, they probably had something to gain as well. And then let's not forget that there's a whole different game plan going on for thousands of years as well on top of that. All right, so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So now, though, when we are reaching a very critical stage in our development in history, we seem to be pushed toward disclosure. In fact, you are the crazy person now, if in a way, if you don't think there is a intelligent life in outer space, right? Every scientist will say to you, yeah, look, it's a highly likely scenario. It's very possible. This is a very different tone
than even 10 years ago.
Yeah, very different. Anyway, we've got Barry back. Brilliant. Thank you for getting him back.
So, Barry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's so much better now.
That's good.
All right, so look, let's just go it again. So you said you got into it at the ripe age of 10 years old.
Yes, that's right. I was walking home late at night after the Saturday night movies at 10-year-old, and just stopped to gaze at the beautiful night sky, how clear it was in the country there, and notice these high altitude individual objects moving very, very rapidly. And I'd later, learnt that they were UFOs. So, but I didn't see any more until about 1970, and that's when I saw one at very, very close proximity to me.
I have to say, you were living at one point when I came in contact with you for the first time. You were in Grafton or thereabouts.
Yes, that's right. I was in Grafton during the 1990s, and it was about 96, I think it was, March 96. I saw, if you're familiar with the photograph of Lubbock, USA, when Texas, I think, where the 19 objects were in the staggered formation, in the big boomerang formation. I saw exactly that. And these were yellowy objects surrounded by a whole object was surrounded by a white haze. And when I saw these, I remembered that photograph, and I knew there was UFO activity. And that's when there was UFO discs and large individual craft flying at low altitude over the town of Grafton. They were moving up and down the east coast of Australia, obviously. I did the compass bearings on them, and they were going up and down the coast parallel to the coast.
Wow, okay, because I've got a picture up here for the people who are going to be watching this. This was the Lubbock Lights from 1951.
That's the ones, yes. I saw exactly that formation of objects. The only time that I have seen them, and I haven't had any other reports in Australia of anybody else reporting that same type of formation. So I was very fortunate to be able to see them.
In fact, I have a question around that, Barry, and this is probably your area of expertise, I'm hoping. So a lot of people watch the skies, and not everybody is successful in spotting UFOs, much less actually taking footage of them. But you, I think you're quite successful at that. So do you have any tips on how people can improve the odds of capturing something meaningful? Are there any hints as to how we can be more successful in capturing these images?
Well, I've learned that UFO activity is not happening all the time, so you've got to be observing the skies quite regularly to get them when they're happening. You know, like it's UFO waves, as we call them, when the activity starts to happen, and during that period you could get a whole increase of activity, but it may only happen for up to 3 nights. I've witnessed a few UFO flaps, and they only last for about 3 nights, which is intense UFO activity. And but the wave of UFO during the 90s, if you didn't see UFOs during the 1990s, you weren't looking, because for the whole decade around the world, the UFOs were visiting Earth. So there was lots and lots of activity. And if you're not looking at the skies and watching them, you'll never see them. But you've just got to spend a bit of time watching the sky and just taking note of satellites, aircraft, what they look like. And when something unusual happens, like UFO activity begins, then you'll be aware that something different is happening, and then observe the skies a little bit more longer, any chance you get, basically. And day or night, they'll happen day or night when they're around. So it's just a matter of observing.
Yeah, completely. I remember having the whole, the neighbours and everyone lying on our tilted lawn in Carlingford, looking up at the stars and watching the stars move around.
Yeah, well, that's stars moving around. They don't usually move around so much relative to other stars.
No, that's true.
There was a lady in Sydney that contacted me, and she was just out hanging the washing up one evening, and this low altitude V formation of small white lights flew overhead. And she rang me up and told me about it, and I said, I know what you're saying. The same thing exactly like that description flew over me in Grafton. And then she rang back and she said, I don't know what's going on here, but all the washing on my clotheslines all moved around. There's nothing missing, but it's all been repegged. And she couldn't explain that. So strange things do happen when UFO activity is happening.
Wow, I've never heard of that. One of the cases that was really that shocked me was the Westall case, where the UFO landed in the schoolyard during the school day in Victoria.
Yeah, that's one of Australia's most interesting cases. Obviously, it's been well studied and well written up, well researched. There was many witnesses to that, and the military were involved, and they come and saw witnesses and told them you didn't see anything, and they cleaned the site up of any evidence. And it's a classic, best example that Australia can produce as far as UFO sightings as witnesses and evidence left behind. So yeah, that was a very interesting case.
There was a similar one that happened in Africa, where the children were interviewed afterwards, and these are children who haven't seen popular culture at all, and they had the same description of the modern alien, and saying that we're ruining our planet, and they said there was telepathic information coming to them. Extraordinary that there should be something so similar, and especially with children.
Yes, it is interesting. The late John Mack interviewed those children there. He did there's a video, I think it's up on YouTube there, of the interview of the children. That's another example. And there was also one landed in a park in Russia with beings observed by the local people there, and it does happen from time to time, but very rare. But I mean, the disclosure's happening around the world with people witnessing these things themselves. We don't really need government officials to tell us that it's actually happening, because the people that see them and report them and study them are well aware that these things are there.
The establishment of MUFON, and then the AUFON recently as well. Your name is connected with the AUFON, and is that Mary Rodwell's organisation that she's put together? Which one's that one?
No, AUFON is there's a bit of a story to that I won't go into, but Robert Fowler and Diane Harrison, or Diane Fowler, they got married, but they sort of took that over in, I think it was about 97, and just to investigate all the sightings. Well, actually, just to record all the sightings that come in from around Australia. Robert Fowler runs the Ufologist magazine, and he was able to use that evidence or those reports to fill his magazine up with sighting reports. But that's no longer actually an active group. So
right.
The email might be out there, but I don't think it's so much active. But as far as Australia-wide, I think Robert Fowler's still running it, but we sort of don't. I'm associated with the Brisbane UFO Research Queensland group now, and that's where I'm situated.
Oh, awesome! I mean, Brisbane's a nice place to be. Is it? What's the? I know that the Northern Territory has an influx of international visitors every year to observe all of the lights around the storms that get on. And I was wondering, what's it like in Brisbane?
Well, we videoed a UFO in the daytime here only a couple of months ago, well, the end of last year, basically, and that's my first and only UFO sighting in Brisbane. But yeah, it's, as I said before, if they're not around, you won't see them. It's only when the activity is happening, and you're not too sure exactly where you're going to see them. You know, like there are certain flight paths where they frequent. I think in New South Wales it'd be, say, from Coffs Harbour
Through
west
the
to the
Grafton.
mountains.
Yep.
You know, like that broad area is sort of like a flight path, but then you get more concentrated areas. They seem to, when they move on the move, you know.
Mhm.
But as far as Brisbane's concerned, we've been getting a lot of sighting reports from the Gold Coast, and you know, they happen spasmodically up and down the Queensland. Well, around Australia it's the same. You know, it's all spasmodic.
My encounter just north of Coffs Harbour on the way before you go inland, and I forget there's a beach name, but now the freeway doesn't go quite as close to the, you know, it's sort of the trees are bigger now, but back in the 90s, I saw an orange orb, and I wanted you to tell everyone what kinds of UFOs, because you've mentioned the bright white glowing orbs. What other kinds are there that people might, you know, be able to identify?
Well, those orange ones that you saw, you have to be very careful of the hoax garbage bag devices.
Uh-huh.
There are, the garbage bag with the wax firelighter underneath, like the Chinese lantern type thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of that being seen and reported during the 90s, and spasmodically they're still launched for some reason. Kids having, mucking around on holidays and all that sort of stuff, they do that. But there's two main types that I've been able to see. When you get the disc activity happening, where during the 1990s, there's a whole lot of different variety of like the big boomerang single objects.
Oh.
You get the disc in V formations, various formations, and then there's another type that I've seen, which is the daylight wave or the fleet footage type object you see which is typical Mexican fleet footage. They're round white orbs, usually white, and they form in clusters. Sometimes they're pink, and sometimes there's jet black objects. These are different to the disc type activity that was happening in the 90s. So it's a little bit unusual, and it's hard to know the facts about it, but I think a lot of the daytime fleet footage objects are a living critter of some sort. They seem to be a life form within themselves, rather than an object containing aliens. Where in the 90s you were getting objects that were obviously, well, to me they were obviously alien spacecraft. So there's many different types, and there's also what I consider probes. I've seen the smallest one I've seen is like, say, tennis ball or baseball size objects. These are small objects, and there's some that are the size of a basketball or twice the size of a basketball. They look like probe type things, I would call them, just to identify them for my description, you know.
My grandmother had one of those white glowing basketball sized things enter her house and dodge furniture to confront her in the kitchen. This was in Barrington Tops, with no electricity, nothing, clear day, and that happened in the early 1900s.
Yeah, well, that's probably a similar object that the military, the Air Force, were reporting as Foo Fighters during World War II. They could be the same type of object. See, there's a lot of mystery. Like, we take orb photographs. These orbs showing up in photographs are not all dust and moisture, which some people claim. they seem to be an entity that moves with some intelligence, and that's the sort of stuff that you can photograph as well on video and still photos. So it's there's a whole lot of mysterious stuff out there. It's just a matter of trying to work it out or capture it for yourself or observe it.
We had Damien Knott on, Damien John Knott, on the show. He's presented at the local UFO Society here at Tuggerah, or Wyong, and I'm from what I understand, my mother used to attend one at Long Jetty or thereabouts when she was alive, and Damien has those photographs. Is don't know how he does it. He's able to capture photographs of orbs. I've been a photographer for a long time, and I've never been able to inadvertently take a photo of one, and I've never tried to intentionally. Sorry, I've not been able to successfully try to take one on purpose, if that makes sense. And I don't know. I think maybe where he lives and where he goes, and he gets the feeling that it's time to take the photo, and there it is. And I think there's a lot to it. There was a movie where the aliens themselves were in a sphere like a shield sphere, and that's how they flew. And that was the glowing white was an after effect of having the shield up and its propulsion system, and they were quite small creatures. And I wonder how close that might be to the truth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've observed that type of in the movies. I think the Hollywood writers, they scan the internet, getting a lot of information from UFO websites, and they must monitor all this stuff, because I remember I videoed an object over Grafton, and I classified it as a jellyfish UFO because it had a dangling appendage underneath it, similar to a jellyfish, and the way it moved, And it wasn't a couple of years after that, they had a movie out, and they had these jellyfish UFOs with the same description in this movie. And I'm not saying they did it because I mentioned it, but it just seems suspicious, It seems strange that they have the similar sort of things in their movies that people are reporting. I don't know if that's valid, or is this just like we're helping them create ideas in that regard, But back to Damien, I know Damien quite well, and I think that what he videos, and I think once you show these things that you are conscious and aware of them, they will start to show themselves to you. That's what I was. I think has been happening in my regard as being able to see so many. I was at a stage in Grafton where I'd walk out the front and a UFO would fly over at low altitude, just a dull yellow shape, and I'd walk out the back door and another one would fly over. As soon as I walked out. So I think to myself, is that waiting above the home for me to walk out, or is that just sort of showing that they're around, or I don't know the connection there somewhere. But I think that. Go.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, go ahead.
I think once you make yourself aware that you can see them and observe them, they'll come and show interest in you, because not everybody shows that awareness, and they're probably just as curious about you. How come you can see me and other people can't? Type thing,
And that's the thing, and thank you for making that point. And my apologies for interrupting earlier, but that's exactly what we found as well, talking to other people as well. It's a state of mind. It's a state of mind that people have to have when dealing with these kinds of phenomena, right? A rigid mind set in its ways, especially when it comes to Western science, empirical method, and all that stuff, doesn't really get to see these things. We choose not to see it in most instances, right? It's just too outside there of our comfort zone to deal with. And thank you for making that point yet again, that I think maybe we have to change our outlook on life. Maybe we have to have a different attitude. Maybe we have to be open to seeing certain things, right?
I think that's probably right. it's the same with your vision. Like I did a lot of nighttime sky watching, and I was able to develop a pretty good night vision and peripheral vision. They seem to develop together. And I was able to become aware of objects like aircraft in particular, or objects approaching even before I could see them. And I think it's an expansion of consciousness, an awareness. These objects that do fly around, we call UFOs. Their awareness must be phenomenal, because that's just the feeling I get. Because I'll tell you a story. When I was living in Glen Innes, northern New South Wales, on the top of the range, Great Dividing Range, there was a light that at a distance, probably 20 kilometres, and I flashed a laser at it, knowing that it wasn't an aircraft, of course, but an unusual bright light. And within 6 to 8 seconds, a triangle UFO flew over my backyard at treetop height. Now, if that was the same object that got there damn quick, or if it's not the same object, where was it? How come it took that short amount of time to get there to check me out? And that brings to the point. Okay, I used a laser. It wasn't a very powerful laser, but was I in danger? Did it have a weapon on me? Because I think like laser technology, as far as weaponry, is being developed by certain nations. And, they're becoming aware of lasers. So I'd be a little careful about flashing lasers at these lights as well, too, sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. It reminds me of the movie Independence Day when the radio warns people not to shoot at the UFO.
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't shoot at the UFO.
Yeah. If you're using a laser and they've been had to dodge weapons, real stuff, like powerful weapons like that. Well, like the local Joe Blow's pointing his laser at it, like you see on YouTube. Well, like, don't put yourself in danger, because they've probably got pretty good lasers themselves.
Do you know, we're coming up to the break. It's only about a 1 minute break. The top of the hour. We're going to be coming back again. We're currently talking to Barry Taylor. He's a researcher, and especially in the UFO field. We'll be coming back shortly. Please use the time to donate. It's user funded. You know what to do.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet, and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net or in the entire universe, as long as you can get Earth's internet. Since it is listener-funded radio, if you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button. It's on the site support page. It's on the left-hand side in the chat room. Your donation is greatly appreciated and helps run this station. Mackie and I don't earn anything from those donations. It is purely to the station to support all the servers in the background that you don't even know exist. But anyway, what I'd like to say is hello to all the new listeners, all the new followers, everyone who is now a friend of mine on Facebook, everyone who's a friend of Shiny Side Outs, anyone who's following me on Twitter or Mackie on Twitter, even our blogs, the whole business, the whole box and dice, welcome aboard, and we hope that you can make your own decisions based on the information we present you, and that you can bring another along with your journey. This is our journey, and you're traveling with us. A lot of stuff we already know, a lot of stuff we don't know, and we're able to, like the Zika virus, it's building. We'll bring you more of that as we get to it. So we're halfway through show number 205, and we've got a great guest on. This is Barry Taylor. Barry, is it okay if I call you a researcher, and in particular a UFO researcher?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I that's why I observe these objects. I'm researching what it's all about through my observations. Rather than going through old sighting reports and chasing all that up. There's other people doing that. And I like to get out there and try and video them and see them for myself. And, with my own eyes, I can study what these objects do and study the footage that I'm able to take it when I can get it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. Since you have been doing this, what kind of trends have you seen?
Well, the 1990s was high activity, and when you work back, it seems that around every 20 years there's been an increase in UFO activity. Like the 50s, the 70s, the 90s, and it's it's got to be happening somewhere now. But we've had reports of discs being seen in this period of time. So this location is not perfect, obviously, for to see the disc activity if it's happening again. But there's certain locations up the east coast of Australia and probably more to the east in Queensland if you draw a straight line for where the activity was in New South Wales. So it's probably a little bit off the coast here in Queensland. So people in those locations should observe the skies. The best way to know if the activity's around is to monitor the Facebook pages where people are reporting these things is a good place these days.
Mm-hmm.
And once the genuine, interesting sightings are happening, that's why people should post them. And then you got to learn to sort out the
wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, exactly. The misidentified objects or the hoax devices, and be able to, the ones that people see that are described as definitely unconventional. Well, they're the ones worth following. In those areas where they're reported, get out there yourself and have a look around, because that's how you'll see them when they're around.
See, and Dave and I have always said it only takes one unidentified flying object to be real. It only takes one to be an actual craft from another world, if you will, or dimensional craft, doesn't really matter, but it only takes the one, right? Out of the millions of sightings that there are.
Yes, that's right. In 1999, it was November 99, there was reports of cattle herding the western boundary fence in the Darling Downs in Queensland. There was an object, mysterious object, supposedly a meteor, landed in a Guyra water supply dam. And I also saw on 3 occasions low altitude, what I consider alien spacecraft. Oh. They were, I'd never seen anything like that, and I'd seen a lot. And there was activity happening there. So, some things are better. I tried to videotape them. If I could have videotaped them, you'd have seen something amazing. But it's just a matter of observing them, then try to capture photographs or video of them.
Absolutely. Now, over time, of course, I mean, you've been at this for decades, which is awesome. And similarly, Dave and I have been involved in this, but not to the level that you have. So my question is, do you find this is a single phenomenon? Meaning, is it just one type of observation or craft we're dealing with here? Or do you think that there's a variety, potentially, of different explanations? And I'm not talking about hoaxes or misidentified things. I'm actually talking about the genuine article, right? So do you think it is just the one type of craft or the one type of creature or being that is in the craft? Or do you think there's a variety?
There's definitely a variety. As I was explaining before, during the 90s, there was disc activity and large single object boomerang type objects and the big triangles and all that, but I haven't actually seen a triangle. And then there's also the daytime footage of the white orbs and all that sort of thing happening. They're totally different things, and the size of these, some of them, which I consider to be like probes, they're probably different types of. They could be controlled from another planet or a spaceship many, many miles away from here, like a long way from here. If I can tell you a story about 2 other things that I observed while in Grafton, there was a boomerang-shaped object. This one in particular came down at the end of my swimming pool, like 20 foot away from me, and I observed it, and it's noticed that I was watching it, and it stopped. And this was only about 12 foot above the ground. And the ambient light, it was not illuminated, but the ambient light from around it illuminated it enough where I could see that it had scales, like a reptile scales. And I was moving my eyes up to the front of it to see if I could see eyes or a face or something. And it must have realised that I could see it, and it started to wobble from side to side as if it's deciding, hey, you can see me, what am I going to do type thing. Anyway, suddenly it disappeared in front of my eyes, and I don't know what happened to it. But it was about a metre, the arms of it were about a metre long, and it was boomerang shaped and in a diameter of about 150 mil. It was quite an object, and it disappeared, and I think it might have gone into an invisibility. It's changed into its environment like some squid do, you know, they instantly change into the environment or invisibility. And that's what I think it did. And that was pretty freaky because that was something that was real. and I call those gargoyles. Just to give them a name, they're a stealthy nighttime object that creep around and a bit spooky because they're not illuminated, but so I just called them gargoyles, you know. And the other type, if I could mention it, was a football-shaped object, and they were streaking through the sky. They'd move so fast that they'd just blink on but leave a streak in the sky, and another one of the same type would come in to intercept it. And this happened several times, and I sort of nicknamed those interceptors just to give them a name, so when I refer to them. And they were real
where were
objects.
you when you saw one of those?
Pardon?
Where were you when you saw those?
I was outside my home in Grafton, New South Wales.
Okay, yep.
And another one of those interceptor type ones, they're only football size with very small wings that didn't flap. They were just like guidance wings in the atmosphere. I saw one approaching in my peripheral vision, and it was moving just at rooftop height, only like 10 foot away from me. And it was moving so fast I couldn't lay my eyes on it, but I saw it disappear in my peripheral vision to the left. And I heard the of the air as it passed through. So I estimated the distance and the time it took, gauged on a 50th of a second of a camera shutter, and it was travelling at 300 kilometres an hour, rooftop 10 foot away from me. And that's disturbed the air as it went through. And that was what I call the interceptors, and they were another small mysterious object that were around at the time.
Apart from disturbing the air with the interceptor, the other one that was hovering, did it make any sound at all?
I think what the sound it made, I heard a very low frequency pulse in my inner ear. It was a subsonic pulse, and I heard this on a few occasions, and I knew that it was nothing that was man-made. It was just like, I heard it from the air, like you could hear it moving in the air, but I couldn't see an object there. And it was I assumed it was something like the whales communicate around the globe using a subsonic pulse noise. And I think I think it was these objects were using the same type of subsonic pulse to communicate with, and I could hear it, I could feel it on my inner ear rather than hear it, you know?
Well, that would explain a lot of things. I mean, the thing is people always wonder, why can't we intercept, or why can't we, listen in? And the truth might very well be it's a completely different band they communicate on. It's completely, and in fact, they might be using technology completely different from us as well, entirely, and we haven't figured it out yet. I'm always astonished, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. People are always trying to overlay human motivations and human technology over what might ostensibly be aliens from another world. And I think that just doesn't work, right? I mean, I think we have to accept that these beings might think completely differently from us, right?
Well, yes, I'd say that'd be for sure, 100% sure. I think also, it's possible that they communicate within flashes of light. With our computer age, we have binary code, ones and zeros, and I think that the computer or the communication with the UFO or certain types of UFO is done with light. The photons of light are like our binary code, and with a quick pulse of light, which the sky was full of them in the 90s, they've been reported. Even astronomers are going to study these mysterious pulses of light, flashes of light, there's an enormous amount of information could be transferred in one single pulse of light if you had a receiver that was able to collect it, and I think that's because I observed on a few occasions a pulse of light like in one direction up near the Big Dipper area, and then some distance, which would have been in real kilometres, would have been a phenomenal distance, another pulse of light, and they were pulsing one after the other in a communication type thing. And I think within that pulse of light, this is what I like to observe these things myself, because, you get ideas of what could possibly going on. And I think there was a communication happening there, and there could have been a great amount of data transferred in that pulse of light. So I think that might be where they're going. That'd be the ultimate computer operating at the speed of light and operating like that.
Squid are known to communicate using the same kind of methods beneath the water. They can even do a particular frequency of flashing that stuns its prey in order to grab it. I've seen documentaries on this, and I thought that was that really lends itself to this.
Yeah, that's right. We can probably learn a lot about UFOs by studying the intricacies of nature as well. Why do UFOs fly in a V formation? So the migrating birds, the scientists tell us they conserve 71% of their energy by doing that. Well, the UFOs are probably doing the same thing. Another of my observations in 1999, I witnessed what I estimate to be 200 UFO discs in a group moving to the east.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned the light communications, and there was a theme played on by Close Encounters as well. But I just had a thought on this planet, on our planet, creatures that are communicating via color patterns, and I guess this is also emitting light from their body. Are in fact octopi. Certain species of octopi communicate via changes in the skin or the skin color, right? So I wonder if there might not be a closer connection to those folk and the visitors and theirs to us. Some of the visitors, anyway.
Well, Meki, there was actually cephalopods, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Were discussed recently in the last few months by scientists to suggest that they don't have any DNA that's similar to any other creatures, in fact making them aliens themselves.
Yeah, that anything's possible. And this alien intervention on Earth, you've only got to look at the TV series Ancient Aliens and see the sort of things that they present. There's enough evidence here on this planet now to show that there were some clever people around that had some amazing abilities many years ago that created some of these stone structures. And the Egyptian pyramids, the ancient Egyptians, were only one society that we can look at to see there must have been high technology used to create a lot of that stuff and build that stuff. And it happens in South America, and there's places all over the world. So alien intervention on Earth, you wouldn't know what life forms that they bring and changing DNA, and we're only probably an animal to them. I don't know. It gets very complicated, of course.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that we've spoken about on the show quite a bit is the ancient alien. The premise that there's been more than one technological society on Earth. We're just one of many that have occurred. Intervention has occurred as well. I'm putting some images up now of the South American pyramid structures with their amazing stonework, which today can be matched in the South American pyramids. However, drilling was never part of that presumption. We always presumed the ancients were technologically inept, that all they had was, Giorgio Tsoukalos said chicken bones when we interviewed him. But there seems to be, with the monolithic structures around the planet, this tools down, a sudden catastrophe that wiped them all away. And we lost the ability to understand how they could cut and move these tremendous stones.
Is there a question?
Yeah, the question is that it seems as though the interventionist theory is currently the most plausible. What do you think, Barry?
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of these older societies are very familiar with the layout of the cosmos, with the planetary and star systems. So they don't, they must have been trained in those aspects of it, because it takes a fair amount of intellectual development to be able to learn about the star systems and be able to place them in certain areas and understand how they work, and that, like many of the ancient native tribes say their ancestors came from the Pleiades. I think the Australian Aboriginals are amongst those as well. So, there's some interesting things, but we can study. There's so much to study in this subject, like it's never boring. So we can either study the ancient side of things, or we can study the modern day sightings, or we can just get out there and observe the actual events happening as they occur in real time. And that's what I like to do, and I can learn from that, and hopefully, it keeps me occupied, I suppose.
Oh, look, you're 100% correct, and this is something we're trying for the last 4 years. That's something we're trying to bring to our listeners and viewers, I guess, now with the video YouTube channel. But the thing is, this, you're 100% correct, and you could get lost in any area that you wanted to. But I think, and that's something we've tried to do, is to draw the ball to I guess bring it all together in a comprehensive way, because clearly the phenomenon itself has been with us for a very long time. People have described it differently. Okay, they talked about gods coming from the sky, they talked about demons, they talked about the little people coming to take the children away, things like that, right? The succubus, incubus, all kinds of different legends that existed throughout time. Only now, I guess since the 40s or 50s, having our technological head on, we look at it going on. These are spacecraft, clearly, and for us, that maybe they're not. Right? I don't know. Maybe they're interdimensional craft. I have no idea. Maybe they're time travel devices. I really don't know. The point is that we look at it with different eyes to someone 500 years ago or 10,000 years ago, right? But we're all describing the same thing. So you strip away the cultural bias or the specific viewpoint, and you look at the actual thing that is being reported,
and the lack of vocab.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
The lack of vocab. They're not able to describe it in a way that we would.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to look at Ezekiel. Ezekiel was taken up into heaven, right? And he describes the ocean or the sea as a big puddle of water, and the land like a big porridge, like a bowl of porridge, right? Now, that's pretty apt if you think about it, right? You're taken up in this. That's what it looks like, right? And it's riddled. Our history is riddled with things like that. Some people don't even come back, right? They're taken up, as it were. So it is very important. I think that's why your work is so important, Barry, and people that do work like you. It is so important because this phenomenon, which has arguably been with us for such a long time, is still with us, and therefore we must understand what it is. It's affecting us. People are having physical visitations. I mean, again, you can say they're all crazy, but that there'd be a lot of people that are crazy, and you really have to accept it for what it is. You take pictures of it, Barry. You've taken photos of it. I mean, it's physical. There's something physical, right?
Yeah, definitely.
There's no question of
that. When you get into the type of beings, or the abduction side of things. People have asked me if I've ever been abducted, having so many close encounters, basically, and I don't openly admit that I'm an abductee, but I've had some pretty weird dreams and woke up with scratches on me and all sorts of strange things, and but I don't claim to be. I've never seen a grey alien. I remember early one morning I was awoken by something pulling on the sheets up near my chest. Pulling on the sheets, like tugging on it as if to wake me up, So I woke up and I thought, what's going on here? I thought, is that a rat trying to crawl up the sheet? Because there was no dog or cat in the house, and it kept continually tugging on my bedclothes, on the blankets and sheet. Anyway, I thought, well, I'm something there, and I looked over quickly, and there was a little hairy creature about 150 mil high, but the hair, long hair to the ground, just gliding over to where I had my shoes and disappeared in front of my eyes. And what the heck's that? And anyway, next morning there was no evidence. I looked around and I couldn't see anything. But that afternoon, when I walked into the bedroom again, in that exact same spot where it disappeared, there was a clump of hair. Anyway, it was about 100 mil long. It was a tan colour and it had a crimp in it like wool, but it wasn't wool. And it had a twisted, you know how you two inner spring coils, you can twist them inside one another? That type of twisting. The curl on it was twisted like that. Anyway, I sent it to get identified, and it was rayon, a man-made fibre called rayon. Now, what this rayon, how it got there, I have no idea. And that was the same length as the hair on this little creature. Who knows? Did it come back to leave some evidence? But anyway, I put that little piece of hair in an envelope. I had a special envelope, A4 envelope, that I put some hard evidence stuff that I was collecting. And one night there was a rustling in that cupboard. I didn't get up to check it, and the next morning I checked it, and that envelope had disappeared.
Oh, what?
So how that happened?
That's incredible.
My unit was locked. I don't know how, but I just wish I'd have got up but anyway, it's disappeared. So.
But again, see this clearly. Whoever or whatever we're dealing with here is not confined by space as we understand it, right? As you said, this disappeared in front of your eyes. Something disappeared out of your locked room, as it were, and clearly. There's something well beyond our capabilities. Well, at least as far as we know, right? Yeah,
and I can tell you another one. About 2 or 3 in the morning, early hours. I don't know what time, but there's the light from outside in the street was shining just enough light in through the bedroom curtains to illuminate a little bit, and there was an object inside my bedroom near the window. If you hold your hand spanned out, open your fingers and wiggle your hand side to side, it was wobbling side to side like that, only just out of arm's reach. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I think, what the heck's that? I'm wide awake. That thing's in my room. What is it, you know? Anyway, I'm watching it for about 20 seconds or so, and then it disappeared, just disappeared in front of my eyes. And I think it was 2 weeks later, in the daytime, I videoed an UFO object coming over town, and it did exactly that same wobble. I can't explain that. So whether it was the same type of object, I don't know.
What describe the object a little more?
The object was it was if you open your fingers out like stretch your palm out. It was sort of that's the only way I can describe it. It was like that. But when I first saw this object in the daytime, it was just rotating horizontally. It had a dark side and it had a white lights on the front. But when it rotated away from me, it was just a black object. And then it wobbled it looked a little bit like a bird flapping its wings, but nothing like it was a side to side wobble, not an up and down flap. You know what I mean? The video's on YouTube. If you want to go to my chat, just put UFO Down Under in YouTube.
Yep.
Or Way Too Far Out to Sea. The 2 is a number 2 and the C is a capital C. Way Too Far Out to Sea. You'll see my videos there that I've been able to capture, and there's some strange stuff there. That's for sure.
Now, what was the object like that was in your room? That was just out of reach.
Yeah, it was about the size of a stubby bottle in height, as far as I can describe it. And it seemed to, it's hard to imagine, but it seems to have like protrusions, like not so wings that weren't moving, but it was protrusions. It was that shape. Like if you have a bottle and put 2 triangles on either side of it, like where the wings may go, but it's all static. It was like that. And it was just wobbling from side to side. It was like. just if you shake your hand in a wobble fashion.
The way you've described that, and that's the third thing that's done that. It may be that part of the cloak requires the changing of it's at the outside, so it affects the visual light around the object when it activates its cloak or something, or it's a dimensional rift it opens up, which has the same effect. Could the wobble be observed as if it was like the water was waving in front? If there was water, a thin layer of water, which I'm trying to create as an effect in your mind, the way you would see it. If it had a wave, but you were looking down through it, like underwater, is that the way it sort of wobbled, or it physical wobbled laterally, like?
Yeah, a physical wobble, a real wobble. You know,
Okay.
like it wasn't like an illusion sort of thing. It was something there that it looked physical in its form, and it was doing this mechanical wobble, and then it just disappeared in front of my eyes like instantly, as if maybe it is interdimensional. Some of the UFOs I've seen have been very dimly illuminated white or yellow, like a faint light. If you've got a torch that's got failing batteries going flat, and you shine that torch in the air, you get a dull beam that you can see in the air that's illuminated by the particles in the air. If you get a section of that beam and make a little square out of it or a rectangular out of it, that's like a UFO. And it's almost if sometimes they're in between two dimensions. You know, I like it if you draw two horizontal lines, that's the third dimension, and then you drew above that another two horizontal lines, but the bottom one is slightly inside the bottom two you draw. That's like the next dimension, but where those two lines cross over or intersect, that's another dimension where I think the UFOs might travel. It's partly in another dimension, but partly in our dimension.
Do you know what? We're talking about dimensions. If you talked about dimensions 30 years ago, people looked at you like you were a sci-fi nerd, and it was only imaginary. And now through and sci-fi now has become reality through quantum theory, and there's serious suggestions now coming from science that there are multiple dimensions. It's without a doubt that there must be other dimensions. It's just that we can't get to them currently.
Yeah, that's probably right too. There would be a means somehow, like distorting space is a way to get to another dimension, apparently. But I've videoed a couple of videos, one in UFOs, one in particular was a daytime, looked like an upright cylinder, and it was only probably 300 meters away. And I videoed it, and it's on the video you can see where it fades out until it's invisible, then it comes back again and then takes off. And takes off that fast, it accelerates away at high speed, but it seemed to disappear and just before it took off. And that's pretty amazing, you know, like that's evidence that's on a video. And another one I can just explain, I was sitting down on a chair, it was coming, and it was like a rusty, reddy brown colour, like a cylinder, and it had two little silver wings on each side that weren't flapping, they were just wings. Anyway, when I reached over to get my video camera beside me, and as it saw me react, it dropped down, and I videoed 4 seconds of it. But in the video, I stabilized it, and what happened, it dropped down and then come up a bit and accelerated away that fast. It just went into invisibility. It moved so fast the camera couldn't pick it up, but I had the camera set at 1/10,000th of a second shutter speed, which should have stopped all motion. But it just streaked away that fast. It just went into nothing. You know what I mean? It was incredible speed that it accelerated away at.
To me, it's clear that they're using technology that is way beyond the conventional that we're aware of. Mecki and I presume wholeheartedly that the governments of the world have signed agreements with aliens so they can come in and do things with the people of the planet. For whatever reason, we don't know. If we were in the know, that would be a lot easier. What do you think is happening?
That's a big question, isn't it?
Well, do you think the governments of the world, if we just break it down into tiny parts, what do you think of the governments of the world are aware that this stuff is happening?
Oh yeah, of course they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if an alien came up to me and said, "Well, can I do what I want with your family if I tell you the secrets of how our propulsion works?"
I'm on board straight away.
Yeah, well,
where do I sign up?
Just be gentle with them, but you can do what you like, but just be gentle with them, But now, where's the technology?
Yeah, that's right. And look, any kind of hint or assistance with our military programs would be right up on the list. Whoever it was, I'm sure that there'd be very little hesitation. The only hesitation, of course, would be from the military leaders saying, well, if they're going to give us stuff, we won't be able to use it against them because thi'll have stuff against that. Mm-hmm. So,
it's a big question, I just tell you about one dream I had, if you like.
Sure.
I was taken on. This is just a dream, right? It's not reality. But I was taken on aboard this craft, and we went over Antarctica, and we hovered over the ocean where there was acres and acres of ice, and there was this huge iceberg with a flat face on it, and they demonstrated a laser that was shot into the ice, and there was melted a big hole into it. Yeah, that's quite possible, but it was just a dream.
Wow.
So the weaponry is probably something like that.
It would have to be. It seems way past what we've got.
Yeah. Well, if we could, you've only got to see them move the way they move. How the heck can they move so fast? Without making a sound or out disturbing the air, no sonic boom. Once you develop that technology, the sky's the limit. Obviously, the sky's the limit. You can create anything.
Well, let's hope that I have to ask you a question. What do you think of? Is it Carol Rosen? In that UFO disclosure project, and she's been quite upfront about saying her work with Mecki, the German head of rocketry.
Oppenheimer?
No, the other one that worked at NASA.
That was Oppenheimer.
Was it?
Oppenheim. Yep. Oh, you're thinking... So this number is Teller as well. There's a whole bunch of... In fact, Operation Paperclip got all of the Germans across.
It did get all the Germans across.
Warner von Braun.
Yeah, that's right. Werner.
Okay.
Werner.
Yep.
So when she said that the last card they would play after terrorism would be the alien attack or the fake alien invasion, what are your thoughts there? If this technology is out there and they would easily be able to trump us, do you think that the US would be reverse engineering any of this? And I don't want to make that sound like, well, you're only seeing our own technology, because we don't believe that to be the case. I think the skies are filled with it, and like Stanton Friedman said, and I agree with him when he says that it's the kids playing with the matches in regards to us playing with nuclear weapons, and it got their attention real quick. What are your thoughts about the technology and possible use of that from the Americans?
Well,
or the governments of the world.
I think if the aliens showed that if they're peaceful, like disabling our intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads, if they've disabled those which they have demonstrated, we'd be silly to try and attempt to use that technology, because I think it's demonstrated that they could stop it anyway, and I think they will stop it, because it's just, this planet is so precious. Nobody wants it destroyed, and if there's a couple of like warmongers that want it destroyed and don't think about the consequences, I think they'll be stopped in their tracks before it's got to that stage anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's what the fake alien invasion is supposed to be all for, to unify the planet, so that everyone gets on board with a common enemy, and it wouldn't make sense then to fight, you see, and it would sort of play out like V, wouldn't it, really? But who do you trust? Do you trust the first aliens that land to say they want to be your friends? Or do you trust the second lot that says that first lot are doing the wrong thing?
I don't think they're going to land so much as I think all we can do is to get out there and see if we can observe what we can ourselves, familiarise ourselves with which is the true alien and which is the not. If they wanted to harm us, they'd have done it a long time before now.
So true.
And if we go back to the biblical stories like you're talking about in the ancient societies around the world, they've done nothing but try to help them. So I'd rather keep that in mind. Like they might be doing some things to people that not real happy about, but basically overall, I think that they probably help us.
It's for the greater good. That's the way that I approach it. And, one thing comes to mind. I remember that thing from the 15th century in Europe where there was an aerial battle in the sky that it went on for quite a while. In fact, it was documented that the people was watching it over night after night after night, but were able to tell who was winning between the two different groups of alien ships in the sky. And because that's before we had flight. So they were clearly watching something occurring in our skies and identified it as a war.
Yeah, well, that's a good conclusion from personal observations, and that's where you'll learn these types of things from. And that's why it's important for us people of the planet to get out and observe these things, so we can see that if we feel threatened, well, then the threat is most likely there. But if we don't feel the threat, well, we can learn from it and share those experiences with others, so that might encourage them to get out there and say, well, it's not so bad after all, but it's quite amazing when you see it yourself. And that's where you'll learn to understand the whole subject a little bit more, not just what you hear.
A thought just occurred to me, and bear with me just for a second. Let's say there were a war going on, between very advanced civilizations out in space, and let's further assume that our part of the galaxy of the Milky Way is involved somehow, and let's further assume that we are the primitives living on the island, Earth, as it were. And similar to World War II, when the American forces landed in the Pacific and the people were relatively primitive, I guess, in Papua New Guinea, the other Pacific islands, and couldn't understand technology, couldn't understand what's going on. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying that's how it is, but maybe it's a similar situation where nobody really cares about us, really, right? Nobody really, maybe we are just like an afterthought. To people that come here to refuel. We see a lot of UFOs taken on water, for example, right? We see a lot of UFOs going into the water, right? For another one. We've got footage of UFOs being shot down as well by each other, in fact. NASA has released some of it, oddly enough. We know there are funny structures on the moon. We know there are funny structures on Mars. So maybe, just maybe, we are sort of on the sidelines of a much larger conflict.
Yeah, I don't know about the conflict side of things. I mean, in ancient India, they talked of the Vimana there, flying machines, and there's evidence there of like warfare with probably using nuclear missiles and all that sort of thing. There is ground evidence of high radioactivity in that, but we don't know what was causing that. But maybe there was some group that was trying to help us from an adversary that was coming in from another part of the solar system or galaxy or whatever. It's a big subject, but I sort of bend towards life is very precious in the universe, and we've got to look after our own backyard and value that life. And I think if there's civilizations out there way advanced to what we are by many thousands, if not millions of years, They have been through it all before. They see how precious life is and how scarce it is in the universe, and they'll try to help rather than destroy it, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so, but also agree. I agree with you as well that I don't think that if there was any harm or bad intentions, we probably would have been long gone. It might be in their best efforts, in fact, is to keep us going. We were under the impression possibly that it was, I'm going to call it Planet Zoo, that this is like a petri dish, or it's a collection of all the life forms from the surrounding solar systems, or something quite possible. There's also speculation that there was something wrong with their DNA, and it's been quite a common theme, and that their research with us is assisting themselves. And what do you think about that, Barry?
Yeah, well, I think there's a line of thought that we are the aliens themselves. You know, like we're a product of the alien genetics that have been manipulated over thousands of years, like the jump in Homo sapien and all this sort of thing. I think that if they've had an intervention with our DNA, and we're part of their family, so they're going to look after us, I'm sure.
Yeah, completely. We spoke with Lloyd Pye, and he was doing research into hominids and found through his research that the chromosome count changed unlike any other hop, skip or jump in DNA across other species, that we'd compressed two of them suddenly in the chain, and it's a hard thing to try and chew on if you're looking through the progressive evolution, and then suddenly you end up at humans from the previous one where we went down to 42 from 44 chromosomes. It's a hard hop, and he was a Bigfoot kind of person, and in that field, and he would talk to UFO researchers and said, oh, it's a bit, they'd say, I don't believe in Bigfoot. And he would say, well, why not? Isn't it all part of the same thing? Is this not what we're looking at? And so from the interventionist point of view, there would be an external source, and then it all seems to make more sense when you open up all of the cans at once.
Yeah, definitely. It's a massive, big subject, and that's what makes it so interesting. There's so many aspects of it. Linking it all together is difficult because we only got a human mind, and we can put the jigsaw pieces together and start to get an image to develop. And I think that it's when we get to the stage where we can produce some sort of free energy for everybody, that's when it'll really change for us all here.
So I so agree with you. If we look at the chimp, it was only like 2% different DNA to us. If we were to find an alien with only 2% difference again, that we had 98% compatibility with, their children might be putting quadratic equations up on the fridge, having attended preschool. And the smartest mind on our planet right now, maybe that's what they're like at infancy. You mentioned before that we've only got a human mind, and I completely agree with you. And I don't think there's a rule book or an instruction manual that tells us how to use it either. I think being part of this cosmic collection might actually do us some favors.
Yes, we don't need much of a tweaking for us to get to that next stage of development, I'm sure. But it's just a matter of learning what we can and look to the skies for our answers, I suppose, like the ancients did, because we can learn from our observations, and that's probably why the astronomers are looking for other planets, and which they're supposedly finding now. And one day the penny will drop that we're not so special after all, and the universe is full of life, and we have to look after it all as well.
Mickey and I have talked about this quite a lot, and there's a lot of dripping, the constant drip of information, and it's now turned into a stream. It's no longer a drip. I think that the force it's on, and there's a steady stream of info coming from the governments and from their approved statements from all of these outlets, that now there's not just a possibility of planets, but it's more than likely there's life out there. And not only is it more than likely, they're probably really close, and it's just a matter of time now before we find them, is the official stance. Meki, this is what we're seeing. Yeah.
Look, as I said, we are at a point where disclosures is it's rampant, right? A lot of things are being disclosed, and as Barry has said earlier, though, we have to separate truth from fiction, misinformation from the good stuff. It really is up to us, and that's a difficult task. It's not easy. But there's a lot of information coming out. Again, it feels, and no, I don't want to overstate the case, but it feels we're being readied for a larger disclosure project, which may very well be misinformation, but nonetheless we're being readied for it, right? So it is something to look out for over the next little while, because a lot of things have come together, and one thing that really worries me is the Zika virus, like I said, because again, everything is connected, guys, like I said, right? And Barry, you're right, we're somewhat limited in our capacities to thread it all together. We'll still go ahead and try to attempt it, though, but things are coming to a head. I think that is clear, and things cannot be bottled up for too much longer either, I think, because there's the internet, there's just too many whistleblowers, there's information overload, and once in a while you got to look for the nuggets of gold that come through, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It's an interesting age we're living in now, because we have like Facebook, we have Skype for communication to people. We have various means of communication which weren't available during the 1990s when I was witnessing all those events and taking footage and that. Some people call me the Damien Knott of the 90s, because I was getting the footage the same as Damien is, and getting out there. There weren't many people in Australia getting out there sky watching and getting evidence. Actually, in 1996, the only footage that was being seen was from UFO sky watchers around the world. I was communicating with a few in the US, and we were exchanging footage. YouTube wasn't around, Facebook wasn't around. YouTube, we had to send the footage from
the whole file.
Country to country on disk. We had to do it the hard way. But now, with these modern technology we have now, we can share it instantly, and so we want to use it properly. And people are putting up stuff that might be aircraft vapor trails in sunlight, and they're calling them UFO activity. Well, they have to learn, they have to test these things themselves. Better off to test it before you put it on the internet, because you're only blocking the airways with junk otherwise, and when the good stuff comes along, it's you've got to flick for all the junk to get to the good stuff. And there's so much animation these days with technology. Anybody can do the 3D animations, and once you learn it, there's gurus that do it, but it's so easy to fake it. So it's all a learning process to try and separate what's real and what's not.
Yeah, the fakery is what puts me off now, because it's more difficult to let yourself fall in to when you see it. I remember the one where there was an island with palm trees, and there's two low-flying UFOs illuminated with jagged edges, and they flew over, and they were captured pretty well in frame. They flew over, and then they flew away. They curved up and flew out. You might remember that one. Well, the debunking started by looking at the palm trees, and the palm trees were CGI because they had all the same palm fronds.
That's right.
On each one. And I believe that was actually part of the CG that went towards that movie with the Battle of Los Angeles, or Battle Los Angeles. The developers of that, they put that out there just to see how good their CG was.
But people focus on that, Dave. That's the problem. People focus on the fakery, right?
Exactly.
And it only takes one good fake to say, it's all bunk. It's all just bogus. And that's a shame. That's a real shame.
Unaltered photos, original photos, negatives, those things are they're becoming more rare. But you know what? When you have someone who's credible and they're taking photos, I think it helps. But and the fakery is tough. And how much do we know is misinformation that's been intentionally put out there? Oh, there's the music already.
Guys, it was awesome. Barry, thank you so much. It was brilliant. We'll have you on again, please.
Well, thanks very much for the invitation, and I've enjoyed it. And good luck, you guys.
Thank you so much, Barry. And what's the website again, real quick?
YouTube channel, Way Too Far Out 2C, two's a number and C, capital C.
Awesome. We'll put that in.
Or just search Google Barry Taylor UFO and you'll see all my gear.
Awesome. Thanks, Barry. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Meki. Thanks, all our listeners. Take care, and we'll see you next week for show number 206. Take care and catch the round table coming up.